Hello everyone, and welcome to the Willow Cove Crafts knitting and sewing channel. Hello and welcome to the Willow Cove Crafts knitting and sewing channel, a channel here on YouTube where I talk about knitting and sewing and my other crafty endeavors. My name is Emily, and today is Sunday, August 25th, 26th, somewhere around there. And today's episode is all about everything that I worked on in the month of August. It feels like I just recorded a video, which I kind of did. I think it's been about 3 weeks since my last episode. My July makes video came a little late, so now it's the end of August already and it's time for another monthly makes video. So it's only been about 3 weeks. I don't feel like I have a ton to show you today. It has been a shorter amount of time, but also the last few weeks have just been kind of weird. I'm in this really strange mental state where I'm just so easily distracted. Like, I just am having these moments where I just realize I've been zoning out at the wall for 15 minutes. And yeah, I don't know. I just have a lot on my mind. I've been really busy the last few weeks and life is just, nothing bad. I just find myself, I think, easily distractible is the best way to put it. And so ultimately, I feel like the crafting time that I have had, I just, work for a little bit and then get up and wander or stare at the wall, So yeah, I don't feel like I have a lot to show you today. I have my same whip I've been working on for the last few months. I have no finished objects. I have one whip that I've pulled back into rotation, and I have a new sewing project to share with you today. So I think it'll be a pretty quick episode. We'll see how much I end up chattering, but let's get started with what I have been working on. My first work in progress today is the same sweater that I have been working on for the last 2 episodes, I believe. Yes, I started this, I went and looked yesterday, and I started this at the beginning of June, and it's now the end of July. So I've been working on this sweater for 3 months, and I'm over it, to be quite honest. I'm really excited for the finished product, but I've been working on this sweater fairly monogamously over the last 3 months, and I am ready to finish it up and start something new. Part of that is because this summer has been quite busy for me. I did a lot of traveling. That really cut into my knitting time. This sweater is also just a labor of love on its own. So yeah, it's just been really slow going. We're nearing the end, but I'm just so tempted to start something new, but I'm trying to be pretty monogamous in my knitting and actually finish up my projects that I start, so I digress. The sweater, if you've been watching the last few episodes, is my Stria Cardigan by Andrea Mowry. Here's where I'm at. Since last time, I have a marker here. I finished the body. I was pretty close to being done with the body the last time we spoke. I did the bottom hem, which includes a Italian sewn bind off, which is my preferred method for finishing up 1x1 rib. It takes forever, but I think the end result is worth it. So I've done that. And then I also did the button band, which also had that Italian sewn bind off. So I do think While it doesn't seem like a lot of knitting, there was a lot of binding off that was happening on this sweater since we last spoke. You know, the button band is like over 300 stitches. That's a lot of stitches to bind off, especially with a sewn bind off. But oh, it looks so nice. Got my buttonholes. I'm gonna have to go pick out some buttons soon for this. It's gonna be about time. And then just last night, I put the stitches back on the needle for the first sleeve and just knit a couple rows on the first sleeve. So the Stria Cardigan, for those of you that are unfamiliar, is a fingering weight, half fisherman's rib sweater, which basically translates to super duper slow project. Like I said, I've been working on this for almost 3 months at this point, and I'm just now getting to the sleeves. Oh, it looks so good. I do think, so, I don't know, I keep telling myself I'm not gonna knit any more fingering weight sweaters this year. I knit another fingering weight sweater at the beginning of the year that also took a very long time, and I just need some quick wins. However, when I look at those fingering weight sweaters, I just think they look so professional, so neat and clean, and almost store-bought, and they just, there is something so special about a fingering weight sweater, and I'm tempted now to just knit a ton of fingering weight sweaters. They just take forever, especially when you do one in a ribbed texture. So this one was a ribbed texture. My other fingering weight sweater I knit this year was moss stitch, which is not any quicker. So maybe I should knit a stockinette fingering weight sweater and that would go a little bit quicker. But anyways, it's got these cute stripes all over it, and I'm very happy to be onto the sleeves. I've mentioned this many times before, but I actually really like knitting sleeves. I know a lot of knitters don't, but I find that that small circumference knitting just goes by really quickly, and yeah, I just always enjoy the sleeves. I like to save them for the end and just whip right through them. Yes, so I've got a little like renewed joy with this now that I'm onto the sleeves, but all in all, I'm ready for it to be finished so I can wear it. We're at the end of summer, so it's gonna start getting cold here soon, and I'm gonna be wanting to wear my fresh new sweater. Let me talk about the yarn I used. So let me get myself situated. The yarn I am using for this is Ampersand fibers in their Caslon fingering base. This is a 100% US Corriedale wool. This is my main color, which is Pompadour 02. A nice mauvey purple. And then my contrast colors are these four. I always have to look up what they're called. I cannot remember. So the red is Vermilion 02. The blue is Azurite 01. Oop. The tan is Oat 01. And the yellow is Ochre 02. I will put all of that down in the description in case you missed any of those. But yes, I really, really love this yarn. I've used it for some other projects. The Ampersand fibers is a hand-dyed, more rustic yarn, which I don't think you see as often. Maybe you do, I don't know. I don't see it as often. So if you're like me and you really love rustic wools and you want something that is hand-dyed, this is a really good option. the color is really even, which I think is nice. Again, I'm not super, I do like a little bit of tonality, but I'm mostly drawn to, I don't know what the word is, like flat colored yarn. I want yarn that's just like all one color, maybe like a little color variation, but I don't want anything too crazy. I'm not a big like tonal, speckly, variegated type yarn person, especially for garments, maybe for socks, but I think this is a really good option if you're looking for a more rustic hand-dyed yarn. So definitely go check it out. The colors are beautiful. I would knit a sweater out of every single color in the color range. They're just like the perfect shades of all of the colors. I love this yarn so much and highly recommend. So that's my Stria. Will I finish it this month in September? Probably not. If I had to guess, I don't think I will finish it. September is really busy for me. I think I have something planned every weekend in September, so I think my knitting time is going to suffer a little bit this month, but I will keep chugging away. I will get as much done as I can and dream of the day when I have finished this sweater and can cast on something new. I already think I know what I'm going to cast on next, and I'm really excited to just be working on something new, but for now I will persist. As I mentioned at the beginning, I also picked up an old whip this month. I am trying to be monogamous in my knitting, however, sometimes you get to a point in your main project that it's just not super portable. It's not realistic to work on it at every moment. So for my Stria cardigan, I got to those Italian sewn bind-offs and it was not good work knitting. I've mentioned this before, but I do like to knit while I am on calls at work, and that bind off takes a lot of concentration, at least for me. So it was just not feasible to work on while I was on calls for work. So I went and had a look at my unfinished projects pile and picked up an old project that could pass that time while I was working on my bind offs. And I think I showed this, I think I have shown this on the channel. I started these socks maybe spring of 2022, so last year, springtime. If I showed them on the podcast, I probably only showed them once, so I'd be surprised if you remembered. But I started these socks. These are for my mom. These are a Christmas gift. I used to be in the habit of knitting my mom a pair of socks for Christmas every year, and last year I just didn't. There's really like no reason. I just felt like knitting for myself, which happens sometimes and is completely okay. But I do know that my mom really loves and appreciates hand-knit socks, so this year I wanted to make sure that I made her a pair for Christmas. So I do have a marker to mark where I was when I picked these up. Again, I just worked on them kind of here and there at work, so I didn't really add too much, but I am now on the toe of the first sock. I'm not really following a pattern at this point. I've knit so many pairs of socks that I just like kind of know what I'm doing. If I had to pick a pattern that's maybe closest to what I'm doing, I think it's called How I Make My Socks by Susan B. Anderson. I'm not sure if that's the name of it, but I will link it below. That is the very first sock pattern I ever made, and they turned out really nicely, and so I've kind of been doing a variation of that pattern ever since. I do more stitches for my mom. She likes to have a little bit of a roomier sock, so I believe this is 72 stitches, size 1 needles, heel flap and gusset. Kind of the overall archetype of the sock is really similar to that Susan B. Anderson pattern, but I am changing my stitch count. The yarn I am using is, I just talked about how I don't love super variegated yarn, and then I'm using this. I do like it for socks, and this is also not for me. My mom is a much more colorful person than I am. She loves really bright, bold, kind of crazy colors and patterns, so I do think she'll really like this. But anyways, this yarn is Fiddle knits. This is the Aria base, which is 75% superwash merino, 20% nylon, and 5% stellina, and this is the Hummingbird colorway. It's blowing out a little on camera. I would say the green, it's close, but the green is like a little darker, a little more saturated than what's showing up on screen. I film next to, I have a big window right here, so sometimes it blows out the color, but you get the idea, I'm sure. It almost looks a little blue on camera, or teal maybe, but it is a green. It is like a nice grass green. Yes. I don't know if I'll like finish these after I finish my Stria. I'm just gonna kind of keep these on reserve for when I need some simple knitting. I have a good idea of the next couple sweater projects I want to cast on. One of them in particular is a little bit more complicated and I know will not make good work knitting, so I might kind of save these for when I cast on that sweater, because I will not be able to work on that sweater really anywhere outside of the home. And this will be a really good kind of filler project to have on the back burner for that time. So yes, it is only August. I've got several months to finish these, but I'm gonna try and finish these by Christmas so I can give those to my mom. My last work in progress this month is a new quilt. Yes, I have about 10 other unfinished quilts that I could have worked on, but I really wanted to start a new quilt. This quilt in particular, I mentioned last time, but I've been going through some really big life changes and I just wanted to do something to make myself happy. So I started a new quilt and in classic true form abandoned everything else that I have been working on. It's something I'm working on. I'm trying to be better about finishing my projects. I do feel like I've been really good about finishing my knitting projects, but sewing, I'm just like throwing caution to the wind and just starting all the things. But anyways, I don't even know where to begin in showing you this quilt. So I started this quilt because there's a quilt along. So Brittany from Lo and Behold Stitchery, which is one of my favorite quilt shops, pattern designers, she recently released her Scrappy Windows quilt, which is a variation of a cathedral window quilt block. I'm gonna put a picture of her finished quilt here because I feel I will never be able to explain what I am doing here unless you actually see what the finished product looks like, because the quilt I have in my lap right now looks nothing like this picture, but I'm gonna put in her finished quilt so you can see it. She's been kind of teasing it on Instagram and I've just like, it's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. I really wanted to make my own version of this quilt, and then she released her pattern a couple weeks ago and it is free. You can go get the pattern on her website. And she's hosting a quilt along, and I just really wanted to participate. So I am. I do not believe I will finish this quilt in the time span of the quilt along. I believe the quilt along is running for 8 weeks. There's simply no way I will get this done in that amount of time, but I did want to participate and share my progress, and I just thought it would be fun. So anyways, I started this about a week ago. I cut all of my colored squares. Brittany's original quilt is kind of an ombre effect, and I really loved that. I thought it was so beautiful. So I went into my fabric stash and pulled out a fabric bundle that I thought would suit this quilt really well. It just so happened to be fabric I also purchased from, lo and behold, Stitchery. She, I do not believe, sells this bundle anymore, and Brittany did a collaboration with, I want to say, Robert Kaufman Fabrics, and she put together a bundle of fabrics, and I don't think she's selling it anymore, so you can't get this, but it's the fabric I picked out. And here's my fade. They're kind of clipped together because I've sorted them into rows for my quilt, but aren't those colors so pretty? To me, this is like sunset colors. It's not quite a rainbow, but it's more, yeah, sunset, I think, is a really good description of this color palette. So I've kind of sorted them and labeled them to, again, I want my quilt to kind of have a similar ombre effect. And then I started sewing, and again, what I have is not really anything at all. This quilt, the Cathedral Windows quilt, is like magic. I watched the tutorial on how to do it, and I was like, wow, like, who comes up with this stuff? It's like, it's the wildest thing. So anyways, how it kind of works, and again, this is a free pattern. I'm not really giving anything away, but you have your background square. So this is actually the back of my quilt. So I've started putting together the first few rows. I've got these really nice light blues going on. And then you have what you call your frame fabric. I'm just using a cream. And you make these little pockets, as you can see. And then what you end up doing, let me grab a piece of fabric. So you then have your, I think they're called window squares. I can't show you this holding this up. And you kind of put your window square here, and then you end up folding these edges down. This is impossible. You can kind of see, you fold the edge down and it just naturally kind of curves. And then when you fold that edge down, you get a peek of your background fabric, and then you fold all 4 edges down to lock in and frame that window piece. And it ends up looking like kind of circles. Again, when you do that fold, the fabric just kind of naturally curves. And yes, you get something that just kind of looks like circles around a diamond. It's really cool. It's nearly magic. But yes, at the moment, I'm just kind of working on my background, so it just looks white at the moment, but eventually we're gonna have all sorts of different colored pieces of fabric here, and the quilt actually will be majority colored fabric. You don't end up seeing a lot of your frame fabric, which for me is the white. It kind of all just gets like folded and tucked away. And then that ends up, the quilt ends up being quite heavy because there's a lot of layers. There's a lot of stuff that ends up kind of getting folded within the quilt. And it kind of gives it a bit of a weighted blanket effect, which, is there anything cozier than a weighted blanket? So yes, again, not really like looking to keep up with the quilts long, but I did really want to start this. It just made me happy. This is maybe the most fun I've had sewing in a long time. It took me a little bit of getting used to. My machine is really finicky, so, you know, just kind of like getting the settings right to make these little pockets and sew them all together. But now I think I've figured out what I'm doing, and I'm making my background. I'm probably gonna do the quilt. She recommends doing it in sections because it does get so heavy. It can be hard to kind of maneuver the whole quilt through your machine. So I'm really hoping to do 4 sections, and yeah, this month while I'm finishing up my Stria cardigan, maybe I'll, you know, work on that first section, maybe get it done. We'll see. But super fun. I'm so excited to see how my color palette kind of comes together and makes the whole quilt. And yeah, maybe I'll actually finish this one. Famous last words. But yes, that is again the Scrappy Windows quilt by Lo and Behold Stitchery. There's so much fluff everywhere. Now that I am thoroughly covered in little bits of thread, that is all I have to show you this month. Looking ahead to September, again, I just have so much on the schedule this coming month that I don't see myself having an exorbitant amount of crafting time. So I think I will just continue to work on my same projects. And then next month, you'll just see them again. Someday I will cast on something new. It's gonna happen. Yes, I am really hoping to put out a special themed episode mid-month this September. I was doing those for a little while and then I stopped. But I'm really looking to kind of reinvest and reinvigorate my channel. So I do have a couple themed episodes that I'm planning to do this month, and then, you know, maybe we'll do one again next month if that goes well. But at the very least, I will talk with you at the end of September to share with you what I get up to in the next month. So until next time, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, please remember to like and subscribe, leave a comment. I really enjoy hearing from you, and we will chat soon. Bye, everyone.